Going to continue talking about the present perfect. So last time we talked about the present perfect and we reviewed how we could make it. First, we start with a subject, have or has, which depends on the subject, right? Not if it is a negative, and then V3, which means past participle form. Remember, we can find the past participle form, or V3, in the irregular verb chart. So last time we talked about how the present perfect is used when we don't know exactly when something happens. But I want to tell you about another way we can use the present perfect. Here are some examples. Number 1, I have worked at Oakton since last August. Number 2, I have taught English for 10 years. Number 3, Justin has played guitar since he was 5 years old. Number 4, my sister has lived in Denver for 7 years. And number 5, I have taught English 090 for 3 semesters. Now, as you look at these sentences, I want you to notice, do we know exactly when the action started? If your answer is yes, you are correct. In these sentences, we have a time marker. So last August for 10 years. Since he was 5 years old, for 7 years, or for 3 semesters. So this form of present perfect is different because we know exactly when it started, right? Here, the action started in the past, right? Now, is the action still true now, or has the action finished in the past? Let's take a look at number 1. I have worked at Oakton since last August. Do I still work at Oakton today? Yes, even though we're teaching online, right? I still work at Oakton today. So this action started in the past and it continued until now. It is still true now. That is also the same for the other sentences. For example, number 4, my sister has lived in Denver for 7 years. She still lives in Denver today. It's still true now. The actions may also continue into the future. For example, I hope I will continue working at Oakton in the future. And my sister may continue to live in Denver for future years. But it also might be possible that I will stop working at Oakton. It also might be possible that my sister will move from Denver in the future. So this new form of present perfect talks about an action that began in the past, right? It started last August or 10 years ago. It continued until now, so it's still true now. And it may continue into the future. We don't know yet, okay? So this one is a little bit different than the other forms of the present perfect. This is a chart to review what we talked about last time, the differences between simple past and present perfect, and then also what we talk about in this video, where the simple past is an action that began and ended in the past, right? Keyword here is ended in the past, meaning that it is finished, right? For example, I lived in China many years ago. This is finished in the past. And the present perfect talks about an action that began in the past, is still true now. It's an unfinished action and it might continue into the future. We don't know yet. So here's a few practices for you. I'd like you to think about, based on the chart, should I use simple past or present perfect of the verb in parentheses? You can pause the video while you stop to think about it and write down your answers. I'm going to give you the answers in just a moment. Okay, so if you said for number 1, Samantha learned to swim when she was 7 years old, you are correct, right? You only learn something once, so it's not an action that she's still learning, right? She only learned it once. So when she was 7 years old tells us that's exactly when it happened, and it finished. She stopped learning, right? Because now she knows how. Number 2 should be Samantha has lived in Chicago for 10 years. The keywords here are for 10 years and also she loves it. In order to use the present perfect, it still must be true now. And so this verb in present simple tells us that she still lives there now and she loves it living there now. And the last one, number 3, Samantha and her boyfriend saw 8 movies last month. Keyword here is last month to show that it finished, right? It is a finished and ended action in the past. And then this month, they have seen 6 movies so far. The keyword here is so far. That tells us that is a non-finished or unfinished action. And also the sentence that follows, they hope they can see 3 more movies. Maybe the month is not over yet, right? Okay, so I hope that gives you a little bit of practice with that. I also want to talk about some key words that we often use with this type of present perfect. When we use present perfect to talk about an action that started in the past, continues until now, and may continue into the future, we often use it with for or since to talk about how long it has happened. There's a difference in meaning between these 2 words. For means length of time, which I like to look at like this, right? Something that started, for 10 years means 10 years goes from this point to this point, or for a few days, we could say. And then since is a period of time. And what I mean by that is kind of like where you can put an X on your calendar, right? Since last August, since Tuesday, since Friday, right? This is a period of time that we could put an X on a calendar of, okay? So let's look at some more examples. We could say for 3 months, for 10 years, for a few minutes, for a little while, or for a long time. We could also say an expression like for my whole life, right? Since we can use, again, with things like a date, a month, a time, right? Since February, since last year, since 2010, since 10 a.m. We can also use since when we have a subject and a verb that follow. So a clause, since is a time clause. Since I met you, right? I have loved you since I met you, right? Since we were children, we have been friends since we were children, right? So notice subject and a verb. Subject and a verb here. We'll use since, but not for, okay? So here's a little bit of practice for you. See if you can fill in the blanks with either for or since. Okay, so if you said, I have known you since January, right? Because since talks about a period of time and January is a month, right? Something like on a calendar, we can put an X. In other words, I have known you for 3 months, right? Because it is a length of time, okay? All right, so I hope that gives you a little bit of an idea of for and since. For homework, I want to show you what I'm going to ask you to do for homework and show you exactly how to do it. So this is a worksheet that you're going to find on D2L, and it's called Present Perfect using since and for. You can read through this. It kind of goes over for and since, right, on your own. And then at the bottom, we have some practice. So practice A, all you're going to do is read each word or phrase and decide if it is a point in time, a clause, the clause means subject and verb, or a length of time, right? Then you're going to write since or for on the line before it. Let's do one for free, and you're going to do the others on your own. So number 1 says, beep, 5 days. Is that a point in time, a clause, or a length of time, right? I think it is a length of time, right? For 5 days, right? I have been home for 5 days, for example, okay? So again, you're gonna write for and since in each blank. Practice B, answer the questions below using present perfect and for and since. So you have to do both of those things. Again, let's do one for free. How long have you studied at Oakton? You might say something like, I have, right? Then we need past participle. I have studied at Oakton. Now I need to use for or since. I have studied at Oakton for many years, right? I don't know. How long have you studied at Oakton? A few semesters, maybe, since 2012, etc. So each of the questions you're going to answer in a way that's true for you. If it has parentheses, you can choose one person, right? How long has your husband been awake today? Or how long has your mom been awake today? So choose just one of those in parentheses, and the same thing down here. Okay, for the very last part, practice C. Now you're going to write sentences of your own using present perfect and for or since. Be sure to use a different subject for each sentence, right? Please make sure to do this. Very, very important. Be sure to use a different subject, okay? So you can get practice using have and also has. The last two sentences should be negative sentences, meaning using not. For example, I have not seen my best friend since last summer. So those last two sentences ask you to use a negative with the present perfect and for or since. I have an example here, and I'd like you to write other examples, remembering to change that subject. Don't always say I, or she. Try to write about different people that you know in your life, okay? I hope that helps, students, and I really look forward to reading your homework.